Welcome to the channel, everybody. If you're new here, please click on the subscribe button. If you're returning, welcome back. Hopefully you've already hit the subscribe button. If you would take a couple seconds and drop me a comment.
So before I assembled, basically I laid all my parts out. If they have numbers on them, I try to turn the numbers upward so I can find them. Some have letters, some have numbers. Some didn't have anything, but there's not a whole lot of parts. I can't imagine it's going to be difficult to figure out. I separated my bolts into piles so it'd be easy to find them. And again, I've just kind of scattered my parts out so I can find them as I need them. So step one's putting the wheels on. Pretty simple task here. Move the nut and the washers. Washer on. Wheel on. Washer on. Nut back on. Again, left one washer on, wheel on, washer on, tighten. Wheels are assembled. So the next step is showing putting M and N together with part R. So M's on the left, N's on the right. N has this little bar sticking out from it. It doesn't really show in the picture which way it goes. I'm just going by the directions. It's pointing out that way, so I'm going to put it together going out this way. And it appears to fit okay that way. This is a 10mm, by the way. The last step used a 13mm. Again, 10mm. So the next step is to take part S and put it on top of M and N. 2 carriage bolts. I'm thinking we're going to go back to a 13mm. Yep, 13mm. Put that on top of there. Carriage bolt. You'll see a square indent on the side. The square indent is the side, if you don't throw it down, where the carriage bolt goes. So make sure you put the carriage bolt in the square. Again, 13mm. You don't want to crush your tubing. They're lock washers, so once they get tight, you can stop. You don't have to crank them down. You can always go back a little later and snug them up if you need to. Next step is hooking 11 and 12 into, it says V, and no lettering on this side. There's no lettering on this. Just by looking at it, these 2 holes here are where they go. So again, same thing. I'm going to slide 11, 12 into the holes, and then we're going to bolt them in. Again, doesn't really show which way they go, but handles look like they're going downward. It's kind of weird, but that's what it is. Again, not used this, so handle's going to go that way, and then we got 2 bolts on each side. And as you can see by the carriage bolt, again, square peg on this side. And the handles are angled, so make sure you get 11 on the left and 12 on the right. As you're facing the unit. So again, Next step's a little confusing. We're going to take the assembly we put together over here with M&N. We're going to bolt it on to these two holes in front of the handle screws. So there's a hole here and a hole there in front of the handle screws. We're going to put a washer in between, so it'll be bolt, washer, nut. And same thing, 13 millimeter. Now you want to tighten this up to the point where you're touching your bushing, but you still want to be able to move it. So, because this is going to lift up and down. So you want it snug enough it doesn't fall off, but not so snug you can't move it. And again, we're using lock nuts, so once the nut gets past a certain point, it's not going to back off, so you can always snug it up later. And just past the threads on those bolts. So our next step is getting our wheels on. So this is basically the opposite way we were just standing. Our wheels are going to go on and they're going to hook in basically the same thing. Looks like the wheels are hooking into, it's hard to see, but there's this little bar right here is where the wheels are hooking into. So we're going to lift that up and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put bolt, washer, nut. All right, the directions made this next part look really confusing. I don't think they have to be as confusing as the directions show. There's a hole here, carriage bolt hole here. So as the stand lifts up, this bolt's going to hook in through this way. The center piece is going to come up and hook in through this way. So if you lay your wheels on here like I've got them, carriage bolt through, washer, nut. Carriage bolt through this way, washer, nut. So we're going to do it my way, and we're going to skip the directions for now. Just make sure your archers are going up this direction when you put these on. And do the inside part first. So carriage bolt, washer. If you had a second set of hands, it would be great. If you don't, you can muster through like I'm doing. 13 millimeters. And just getting past the first couple threads. Same thing on this side. Since I'm doing this by myself, I'm gonna make this a little easier on me. I'm gonna lift up on the wheels. Make sure if your lock got caught, you unloosen the lock. I'm gonna raise this up to where I can line this bolt up better. Because my holes aren't drilled perfect. Give this one a little low tap. And just getting past the first thread or so on the bolt. Just past that, I can tighten these up later again if I need to. So I've got it upside down. I'm gonna go ahead and take this piece of styrofoam out of here. Rid of that box. Just keep it from getting damaged while you're shipping and putting it together. And I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over and put it back down on the floor. Actually changed my mind. While I'm working on it, I'm gonna just leave it up here on the table. It's easier for me to work on. I'm still recovering from that back surgery, so I'm not 100% yet. So I'm gonna leave it up here on the table while I'm working on it. So if you don't want to do what I did and break the foam out, the next step actually was to, when you flip it over, release the locking mechanism, raise it up, and then release the motor with the packing material. But like I said, I just snapped it out since I was already there. All right, so that's what we still have left to put together. Not much, a few pieces and parts. No bolts left, so everything must just screw on or slide on. I know this is the handle crank. It just screws on with the Phillips head. So we'll go ahead and finish putting everything together, cutting off the tags, and I think that's about it. All right, so the next step was to raise the motor up. You gotta unlock it by turning that. I'm gonna raise the motor. And then it said to turn it to a 45. That would let you get the foam out from underneath there, but again, since I've already done that, don't really need to do that now. So turn that back to 0. Close to 0, unlock it. We're gonna put a handle on. Now that screw is a number 3 Phillips head. If you use a number 2 Phillips head on it, it'll tighten up, but a number 3 is what you should use on it. So I got a number 3, and you can see it's a whole lot bigger than a number 2. Again, a 2 will work. It's just more likely you're gonna strip it out if you over tighten or try to tighten it up. 3 fits in there perfectly. Put that in by hand and then snug it up. And you want that to spin freely. It tightened up. I didn't have to, you could over tighten it if you really wanted to, but even tight, it doesn't seem to bother. So again, that raises and lowers your blade. So next thing I want to do is put the blade on. I got the blade tools here. The storage compartment's on the other side. I'll show you where they go once I get the blade on. It shows you taking them out of there in the instructions, but of course since you're just unboxing it, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're going to raise the motor up all the way. So I'm ready to put the blade on. I've taken off the nut and the washer using the tools that come with the table saw. There's also an arm back in here for this knife. You need to raise it up before you do anything. Make sure your teeth are facing back towards you. If you put it around the wrong way, the blade won't cut. I'm gonna put it in this way because this motor rotates back towards us. So that's the way the teeth cut. I'm gonna slide that in, washer back on. There's also a little flat spot in the washer, so make sure you line it up or it won't go on. Nut on. Now when you go to tighten or loosen this, you'll see that this edge is flat. This side's like a hexagon. So this side goes on your nut. The other side goes on the back side to keep the motor shaft from spinning. As you turn that around, you'll feel it drop down and lock in place when you get it right. You want to tighten these up. You don't need to crank them, but you want to tighten up that that blade doesn't fly off, because the last thing you need is that thing falling off and shooting at you. When you're done, lock your knife back in. You're ready for the next step. Now when I went to tighten this knife blade back up, it was really loose. So when I pushed my lever back down to tighten this up, it was flopping all over the place. So what I did was I locked it in place, and I took this 13mm wrench and just snugged it to the point where it stopped wiggling all over the place on me. Because if not, that's going to wobble. If that wobbles, your guard's going to wobble, it's going to hit the blade, you're going to make a big mess. Something's going to break, you're going to get hurt. So if this is wobbling, when you put it back together, again, lock it in place, tighten the nut down to the point where it doesn't wobble. Don't over tighten it, don't snap it off. You want to still be able to lift up with the lever. You just don't want to have to get a tool every time you want to do it. It's a little bit dark, but I'm going to show you. Up under here, there's a nut in the middle of this. This is a strip on the outside. This is where your wrenches go. And I can't do this one-handed, so I'm going to have to put the camera down. I'm just going to take that off. Put my wrenches on. So there they are, tightened up. So there's my wrenches. So the blade's in, the knife blade is tight. Take my little plastic insert, slide it over top. Slide it back in first. Pop it in place. Now if you want to use your kickback teeth, you can. I would recommend it. These might save you from getting a piece of board shot back at you. I'm not going to use it personally. If you did want to use it, what you do is you fold this back, you push in on the button in the middle of it, which is right here, drop it on the circle, and you're done. And again, that's what holds that. That's what keeps your board. So if your board comes backwards, these teeth grab it and keep the board from shooting out back at you. So I'm going to put the blade guard on next. On the back here is a pin. Now if you left your teeth on, this is a pain in the butt to get on, but you just got to kind of force it in place. In the middle here is your smaller pin. Sorry about the camera angle. On top there's a lever. If you push this lever down, it locks it. So you want to raise the lever up if it's not already. I'm going to hook the back part in first, like so. Once you hook the back pin, let this fall down, and you're going to lock it. Push down the tab, locks in place. That's ready to go now. And again, if this knife blade is loose, these pieces of plastic are going to hit the blade, and you're going to have a big mess. All right, so the next thing I want to do, I just slid my little grabber or my push bar in. Like so, I'll do it again. This piece here, there's a couple tabs on here. It's these yellow tabs. There's some hooks on here. What you want to do is you want to hook this on the far side first, line this up, push that down, and lock it in place. That locks your sidebar in, and then to adjust it, what you want to do on the other side over here is unlock the table, and then you can adjust your cut like that. And there's your measurement, so you know how far in you're going to cut. So that's 2 inches that way. Slide it back out, and you can also lock it on the other side if you're doing a right-hand cut instead of a left-hand cut. Besides that, thanks for watching. Hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope it helped you out a little bit. Once you get ready to fold it up, there's a little lock button right down here. You push that with your foot. You just put it on first, and you just lift up. And just lift up, it gets down to there. Push the wheel down a little further, locks it in place, and you're ready to move on to the next job site.